to all those above me that watch over me, to all of you, my fave parapeeps on this side of the veil, welcome. This is Sean Whittington's Paranormal Ministry Live 2.0. I'm your host, Sean Whittington. I'm a seminarian in the United States Old Catholic Church, and I'm coming to you live from my haunted house, my very haunted house where I live. Been quiet today. Dreamcatcher still. Well, there you go. Now it starts to move. Everybody just starts showing up from both sides of the veil whenever I kick the show off. So I don't know if it'll stay quiet here today, but got a great show today, and you guys all know that. That's why you tuned in. I love him. I respect him. I consider him a friend, and I've known him a long time. He's in the green room. I will be bringing him right out. Let's first check the prayer urn. Tammy W. from Arkansas. Hi, Tammy. I can't remember the last time I had somebody from Arkansas. Arkansas, Razorback country. With the holiday season upon us, I and many friends of mine will be traveling, missionary and pilgrimages. Oh my gosh, God bless you. Please offer up a prayer for all that are traveling this holiday season for safe travels for all. You know, Tammy, that is a beautiful request, and I most certainly will. And I too will be doing some traveling. If it wasn't for God, I wouldn't be doing it because I don't travel well. But next week, Thursday, I fly to Kentucky, Louisville, Kentucky, and then I get picked up by the famous Bishop James Long, who will drive us to English, Indiana, where on the next day, Friday the 3rd, I will be ordained a deacon in a ceremony which is going to be very special and life changing. And then the following day at the same chapel, Reverend Mother Elizabeth Winters, one of our priests, will be getting married at the same chapel, and I will attend the wedding. That's going to be very cool. And then I fly back to Vegas on the 5th. So I love this request. Thank you, Tammy. Let me find a good prayer here. I offer this prayer up to for Tammy, all her friends, and everyone within the sound of my voice who may be traveling this holiday season, starting with Halloween next week and for Christmas and New Year's and all that. In the name of the Father and of the Son and the Holy Spirit, amen. O God, our Heavenly Father, whose glory fills the whole creation and whose presence we find wherever we go, preserve those who travel, surround them with your loving care, protect them from every danger, and bring them in safety to their journey's end. Through Christ our Lord. Amen. Safe travels, everyone, and a happy Halloween before I forget. That was a beautiful request. Yeah, everybody's invited to the United States Old Catholic Church. Big thing in English, Indiana. I don't have any. I should have all that information. If I'm going to talk about it, I should have that information in front of me, right? Which I don't. But I'll put it up on my personal Facebook profile and on the website, the address, and everybody's invited. It's not a closed event, so that's going to be actually 3 seminarians, 2 other seminarians, along with me, will be ordained to the diaconate. We will be ordained deacons, and then one of the deacons currently, Tommy Golden, will be ordained into the presbyterate, the priesthood. So it's going to be really a good event. Everybody's invited. Let's check the mailbag. Bill C. from Idaho. This is one of those weird days where can't remember the last time I heard from somebody from Idaho. Hi, Bill. As a man of the cloth, your thoughts on Halloween. P.S. Is it okay for me to celebrate? Okay, I'm just going to throw it out there. If you have children or you live in an area like I do with a lot of kids, it's for the kids, man. Come on, you got to do what you got to do, but do it with a good heart. You know, I used to I live in a haunted house, and everybody was known my house is haunted, so the kids are scared to come here. And when it got to the point where there would be a knock on our door on Halloween night, and it would be the parents asking for the candy, and the kids are sitting down on the sidewalk waiting, we knew that it was time to just stop putting the decorations out and stop celebrating it. But I don't think there's anything wrong with celebrating it for the kids. I used to not put a lot of witchy and demony and devilly stuff out, but I'd carve a pumpkin, put some ghosts and skeletons out, and hand out some candy and stuff. But not no more because the kids don't want to come up to the door and knock and be at the weird old people in the weird old haunted house anymore. So I don't think there's anything wrong with celebrating it. In fact, I was reading something. Let me share this with you guys real quick. And this is for those that have reached out to me this past week or so, hammering me about, the Catholics stole, the Christians and the Catholics stole the pagan holiday. It's part of a pagan ritual too. But All Hallow Tide, the 3 days of All Hallows Eve, All Hallows Day, and All Souls Day are collectively referred to as All Hallow Tide and are a time for honoring the saints and praying for all recently departed souls. The term hallow means holy. You may recall reciting it in the Lord's Prayer. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. There you go. All Hallow Tide. And I'm glad this is under it too. Do you guys know what soul cakes are? Soul cakes are like a small pastry. They're a little bit bigger than a big cookie, a little bit thicker than a cookie, and it's actually essentially a small piece of pastry. They're called soul cakes. I did that one year, and I went around to my neighbors. Well, one year I did it and handed the soul cakes out as Halloween candy. The kids loved that. And then one year I went around to my neighbors and handed soul cakes out to my neighbors. Knocked on the door, they opened it up, I gave them a soul cake. That's very British, and the soul cake thing, they believe started actual trick or treating, but it was always believed that for every soul cake eaten, a soul in purgatory was released and sent to heaven. That's a beautiful thing too. So look up soul cakes online, get a recipe, bake them. They're so cool to hand out around Halloween time. And I'm glad. I wanted to share this with you too. I'm glad this is here. This is a song, but it's also a poem, and I'll read it quick. Soul, soul, a soul cake. I pray thee, good missus, a soul cake. 1 for Peter, 2 for Paul, 3 for him that made us all. Soul cake, please, good missus, a soul cake. An apple, a pear, a plum, or a cherry, any good thing to make us all merry. 1 for Peter, 2 for Paul, and 3 for him who made us all. That is the official soul cake song, sung by British children as they went around asking for soul cakes. All right, guys, happy Halloween. Be safe, especially nowadays. If there's anything you want to know about my wife and I and our ministry work, go to our website, www.ghost-b-gone.biz, if you go there to visit. Remember, my wife and I don't charge for our ministry work, helping people with their paranormal issues. So, but trust me, brothers and sisters, I know times are tough. But if you notice the donate button and you're able to do so, click on it and send my ministry in a small donation. I promise you it'll be appreciated from the bottom of our hearts. And trust me, we'll put it to good use. If you're having issues of a spiritual nature, not paranormal, and you'd like to make an appointment to speak with me about those issues, there's a place on the website where you can do that. Don't leave the website without going over to the page called Introduction to Spiritual Warfare Course/Books. On that page, you'll find both my books, God, Ghosts, and the Paranormal Ministry, and God, Ghosts, and the Paranormal Ministry 2. If you haven't done your good deed for the day yet, part of the proceeds of every sale of every copy of my books goes to support stjude.org, St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital, Nevada, and the ASPCA. How cool is that? You get to help some of the neediest children on the planet and the animals too. That's a beautiful thing. If you don't like, you can get the book a little less cheaper at Amazon. You can get them off of my website. I autograph them for you, send them to you in a beautiful house blessing kit. But if you aren't that interested in an autographed copy and you don't like Amazon, Barnes and Noble is offering a 10% discount on my books for members. So you can go to Barnes and Nobles if you want and get the books there. Stroll down a little further on that page, you'll see the Introduction to Spiritual Warfare course. I offer a online 12-week college level course, Introduction to Spiritual Warfare. And it's for all those true warriors for Christ that feel a calling and a longing to want to have more knowledge when it comes to drawing your line in the sand, making a stand, circling the wagons, and putting up a good fight. Perhaps the fight of your life against, God forbid, true evil if it ever comes calling. That's the course for you. You can enroll. I'm the teacher. It's Introduction to Spiritual Warfare Through My Eyes, not exorcism, not demonology. Introduction to Spiritual Warfare Through My Eyes, what I've seen and been through and learned in my years as a deliverance minister. You can enroll there at the website. If you want more information about the course before making that type of commitment, there is a introduction to Sean Whittington's Introduction to Spiritual Warfare course Facebook page. Or you can just call me, talk to me about the course, and we'll see if it's right for you. All my students that graduate get a stunning diploma, certificate of completion suited for framing, along with some other very special blessed gifts that you can only get from yours truly. Okay. Please keep all of my former, current students, former students, and future students in your prayers because they'll need them, and they appreciate that too. All right, guys, the moment of truth, the reason why you all tuned in. Like I said, I've known him a long time. I consider him a friend. I love him. I respect him. He's just a cool dude. And I don't know anybody else like him. He's a lifelong paranormal experiencer, and you'd be hard pressed to find somebody who's more of an authority on the topic of Sasquatch, Bigfoot, the cannibal demon, the devil of the forest, evil god of the woods, spirit hidden by woods. Just a few names that indigenous tribes have attached to this creature. And whether you believe or not, his stories are fascinating. I'm a big Bigfoot believer. You guys know that. I think I had an encounter when I was in junior high school on a camping trip. So without further ado, please give a big, warm paranormal ministry family welcome to KARL SUP.
Hey, how you doing, Sean?
What are you doing? Speaking of
I just got to ask, okay? The whole Soul Cake song.
Yeah.
Do you think here in America we can come up with one for like, oh, I don't know, Twix?
Twinkies. Yeah.
Oh. I got something to show you, Carl. I'll be back in a minute. We'll work this.
You know, back in the day, it was so funny. Like my parents would buy huge, back when candy was cheap. Me and my wife were in the market the other day, and I was like, thank God we don't have kids anymore and aren't going to be celebrating Halloween because look at these prices. Unbelievable.
Oh my
God.
There you go.
That is Zach. You know what's really funny? It's so funny because I couldn't remember. Those are my favorite, and I couldn't remember they were called ding dongs, and I was like, I can't remember what those are called. And sure enough, you got a box of them. I haven't had any of that stuff in 2 years.
This is a ding dong and a Twinkie mixed.
Oh, it's mixed.
No.
Yes. It is a Twinkie cake covered in the ding dong chocolate.
Oh my God.
That's right. This is the only soul cake I need, brother.
I'm gonna start crying.
I may have to go source those out and see how they are.
They're good. They're good.
There's no way I'm gonna be able to convince Sharon to buy a box of those. There's no way. She's had me on Nutrisystem for 2 years now. There's no way. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna cry. I'm gonna cry right now.
Oh.
Yeah, so I don't know. What are you doing for Halloween? You have family. You probably have a lot of kids in your area.
A ton of kids. We normally are in our neighborhood. Well, because there's about 3 or 4 houses that really go all out in decoration. I'm talking animatronics and motion censored animatronics and lighting and fog machines and so their front yards just completely loaded with it's amazing displays. So kids come from all over. So we normally get around 600 kids at least piling by our house. So rather than having them walk up the long drive and up to the front door, we always just park our fire pit down at the end of the driveway and then set up some chairs. And sometimes I'll roll out my Jacob's ladder, so little Frankenstein laboratory look out front there, and then and the kids come funneling by. Actually, and a lot of adults too. So so it's a good time.
That reminds me, that was something I didn't mention in the beginning of the show when my follower asked about Halloween. I mentioned ghosts and skeletons, but I'm a big old time original Universal monster fan. So yeah, anything Frankenstein, Wolfman, Dracula, Mummy, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, Phantom of the Opera, all that stuff. Yeah, I would put decorations out like that too. So do you mind me asking? And
Sure.
if you don't want to say, that's fine.
Okay.
For 600 kids.
Yeah.
What are you spending on this year, especially? What are you spending?
So there we've got a lot of mini candy pieces. So and we got them on sale. So we got a couple of really large bags of minis. But then the kids that actually live in the neighborhood, we get like full size candy bars. So in some years we actually had a password. So the kids would have to say the magic word in order to get a full-size candy bar. So last year they had me pick the word, and I picked the word meatloaf. And the kids, some of the kids were like, I'm not saying it. I'm like,
you're not going to get a candy then.
You got to say it. But the funniest part was on my, normally I play Halloween music on my party, rock, block rocker out front, but as the night got later and some of the kids hadn't come by yet, I put on Meatloaf Bat Out of Hell album. So everybody kind of thought that was hilarious. The adults thought that was hilarious. The kids had no idea, but I thought it was pretty funny.
Well, I hope.
Why would you use Meatloaf?
Because I was just being funny.
See, I knew this whole shoulder surgery thing and good drugs, pain drugs with Zach would come back to haunt me during the shows. But it is what it is. Glad he got his shoulder fixed. And hey, whatever you got to do to get those.
Yeah, I know.
Zach Soul Cakes, a box of those. I'd go through some surgery and get good pain meds too for that. Oh my gosh. I wish you and your family a very
soul sucking cakes. I think those are soul sucking cakes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I wish you guys that's okay. I wish you guys a very happy Halloween and
thank you.
Safe Halloween and oh my gosh, but nowadays anything you do is just so scary, but people got to live. You got to be brave. You got to, face your fears and live. And trust me, I know. I talk to people every day that don't go out anymore.
Right. Yep.
They go to the market if they have to. They go to work and come home, and that's it because the world's right now just too scary. So, and God doesn't want us to have to live like that. And
no.
Just let go, let God. He'll take care of it all. And in trying to enjoy life, I'm a bit like that too. I've become a bit reclusive since the pandemic.
Right.
I've become way more reclusive than I already was. This is like flying next week to Kentucky and spending 4 days there. Like I said, if it wasn't for God, if I wasn't being ordained a deacon that weekend, I probably wouldn't go on that trip for two reasons. One, I couldn't afford it. The church was gracious enough to loan me the money to go, and I'm not ashamed to say that because
Yeah.
my bishop doesn't want me to fall behind my seminary class. But it is what it is. Life happens, so if like I said, if it wasn't for God, I wouldn't make that trip because I don't travel well. But what I want to talk to you about today, you sent me some things in a private message. I know you're a lifelong paranormal experiencer, but let me tell you what happens every time I announce you're going to be on the show. Let me see, what do I got here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 questions came in via private messages about Bigfoot because
Okay.
they know you're the Bigfoot guy.
Sure.
And right now, Expedition Bigfoot's, very popular. Um, right off the bat, I'm first going to hit you with, in my humble opinion, first I'm going to, you in the green room, you told me about something that I didn't know. That latest film footage out of Colorado was debunked.
Yep.
We'll talk about that real quick. And then I'm going to hit you with, in my humble opinion, the biggest two Sasquatch stories, good or bad, that have come across, the airways in recent times. We'll talk about that. Then I'll ask you about some of your personal experiences maybe you haven't shared with me yet. And I know you recently had an experience in New Jersey,
I
which
did.
grew up in New Jersey, and I had a friend that had a very harrowing. He was drowning in some quicksand and told a story to me about this big hairy man that grabbed him out of the swamp and threw him up on the bank that and saved his life. And he didn't share that story for many, many years until I tracked him down because I started hearing the stories about old red eyes in the New Jersey area, and I thought maybe this guy had a Bigfoot encounter. And of course, in many many years to follow as he grew up, he researched it more, and many people that are authorities on the topic believe he did have an encounter. So, first thing I'm going to hit you with was talk to us about this latest film footage out of Colorado where the tourists on a train allegedly, or what we see in this film, captured what everyone now believes to be a Bigfoot. What do you have to say? I know you've seen the film.
Yep, I have. I have, and when I first saw it, I thought it was a little. It looked a little odd to me, at least is certainly from a behavioral perspective. The fact that it just sat down, it wouldn't have done that, and it wouldn't have, it would have heard the train coming, and it wouldn't have been caught out on an open slope like that. So that was the first red flag. The second red flag was there's actually a YouTuber called Thinker Thunker, and he did quite an in-depth analysis of the film. And as far as the body proportions of the length of the legs versus the length of the torso versus the length of the arms, he was able to pause the individual, where he could get good measurements off of each of those. And as far as proportions go, the proportions were 100% matched to human. All right. Sasquatch have shorter legs to longer torso versus us. And so that was, that's definitive. I mean, you can't fake that, right? Even if you were wearing a suit. So, in my opinion, I don't think that the couple that filmed it from I think they were just filming the scenery on on the side of the slope, and somebody had decided that they were going to hope they heard okay, train's going to come by at 3:20 or whatever time it was, and uh, I'll make a run across this cliff, and then that'll generate a lot of hoax information. And I don't understand why people do that. I mean, it's
Nowadays you have to, if like me, for instance, if I was going to do that, I could never pull off being a Bigfoot unless I was like the deformed, short, fat, black
yeah,
sheep of the Bigfoot clan. But um, you have to be prepared. He's far away from the train, so you can't really tell. But you have to be prepared once it's debunked to come out and say, "Yeah, it was me." Um, I thought it would be funny because nowadays there have been so many really legit footage captured
Right.
of him or it or her
Right.
that, yeah, if you're there's it's almost virtually impossible to pull a hoax off and it not be found out. So you almost have to be prepared as the hoaxer to raise your hand and say, "Yeah, it was me." And now thinking about hoaxers, I've got to throw this at you. And this was one of the two big things in the last few years that came out. And you probably are already guessing what I'm going to talk about. This guy, Todd Shanling.
Yes.
Um, so we've got, I have to admit, you, everybody in their imagination imagines what a Bigfoot would look like. And there's so many different descriptions. When you see these pictures and this film footage that Shanley put out, you kind of go, okay, I can see that. You don't just laugh and go, give me a break, except for like the ones that he say are female or individuals look like, I admit they look like Ewoks if you're a Star
Yeah.
Wars fan. But the other ones, you could buy it, totally buy into that. So now you have this guy, Les Stroud, Survivor Man.
Yeah.
I don't think you would find a more world renowned, respected in the field of Survivor and his show Survivor uh, that's more respected. And here, he finally came out and talked about after all the years he's been doing this, he's seen and experienced and heard some things that to this day he can't explain, which put the bug in him to start looking at Bigfoot. Then he sees this dude, Shanling, and he did, I believe, at least 2 or 3 episodes with Shanling and went with him to like it was almost appeared to be the top of the world that they went to, where no man goes.
Right.
And then he finishes that story by saying, in my professional opinion, I can't deny or confirm either way, but I've seen things and heard things and experienced things I can't explain, and I'm going to keep searching. So there you have it. Then Les even went as far as to have, I know it was at least one season, maybe two. He
Yeah.
had
I think one
Survivor Man
season.
Bigfoot.
Yep.
That was a great show. And again, when he's done doing that season, same thing. He's like, I've seen things and heard things and experienced things I've never experienced before that I can't explain. So I can't confirm nor deny. For a guy like that to say that, that's huge. But then this guy here, I'm reading this one guy he's gonna go out and live. I mean, and you got to do that. You got to be prepared to go and disappear off the radar and live in an area for months if it needs to be. And here he describes where he's going to go. He says, from a lookout above the Harrison River Valley in southwestern British Columbia, dense forest stretches all the way to the snow capped Coast Mountains on the Pacific shore. Thick with towering western red cedars, hemlock, and Sitka spruce trees, the wilderness continues almost uninterrupted all the way north to Alaska. Beyond the roads and hiking trails, the terrain soon becomes impassable, punctuated by steep mountains that plunge into glacier carved lakes. The remote valley, 130 kilometers east of Vancouver, conjures an ancient land filled with mystery and possibility, and some believe it's home to the world's most famous cryptid, Sasquatch, Canada's Bigfoot. Then you have all of the indigenous tribes, and I've talked to many indigenous people who've had encounters, and the ancient petroglyphs and cave drawings of this giant,
Oh,
hairy, bipedal thing that, I mean, we're talking ancient descriptions and drawings of this thing. So now I'll shut up and let you talk about what you think about Todd, Les, and just whatever you want to talk about in terms
so
of this
sure.
creature.
Sure. So, I mean, from my own personal experience, from seeing, the face of a Sasquatch about 120 feet away, right? And as it was digging at the base of a fallen tree, when I stepped out into this meadow and, you know, we both looked at each other surprised, but it kind of froze in position, looked, from digging down, he looks up like this, and just we lock eyes for probably, it was only a couple seconds, right? But it seemed like forever, right? Just looking at the face, right? And then he jumped up, erupted from this squatting position he was in, where he was digging kind of like in between his legs, right, on the ground, jumped up, and this first step was 6 feet away, but comparing that face to the face that I saw when I was in the back, sleeping in the back of my Yukon, and one was looking in through the window, before it ended up leaving a gigantic handprint on the on the glass. Later in the morning, after, so I went back to bed, and then 2 hours later I wake up and here's this giant handprint on the window, that was 14 inches from the tip of the pinky down to the base of the thumb. And the pinky itself, the top digit, was 1.25 inches wide, but had dermal ridges on it and everything, just like our hands, right? And so, but looking at that face, that was no more than 16 inches from my face as I woke up, looking through the glass. It, both of those faces that I saw were not anything like what Todd has purported to be Sasquatch faces. Now, I have never investigated in Canada. Maybe they look a little different up there, but as far as the overall look of it, it looks too refined to me, to be so. In my own opinion, I have to write that off as some sort of CGI. But I know that they are up in the area that he goes. So I know when he took Les up there, they were experiencing interaction, right? Tree knocks and howls and whoops, and and so I know that, and finding tree, gigantic tree structures, and and it's anyway, that so I know that they're up there. So I don't have a good reason why Todd would extend his research materials in order to include, I want to say, fake or questionable faces of, so I don't know, that's my own opinion. Like I said, I've never experienced in Canada, so I can't obviously. I've been a lot of places, not
Well, it's funny you
Canada.
bring up. I love the story about you in the truck, and I thought about you the other day because I'm watching um, Expedition Bigfoot,
Yeah.
and this is gonna be a two-part question for you. They always have every couple of shows they're gonna interview, a witness,
Yeah.
and I have to admit, you've heard so many of these reports, they just kind of, they just go past you and you're waiting for the show to continue on. But they interviewed this one lady, indigenous, a native of Alaska, a woman in a middle-aged woman who's spent the last 30 years practically alone in the wilderness, surviving and living. Um, and she has nothing to prove or nothing to gain from telling her story, but she talks about how many times she goes out camping and will camp in her car. And she talks about this story where she's asleep, and what wakes her up was the rustling of what she thought was a bear. And that gets your attention because she said there's a lot of black bear where I live. So I just wanted to make sure everything, I'm ready for what might be coming, but there's a bear outside of my car. Then she said something behind the car was like it got rear-ended by a truck, like it was standing still on the freeway and got rear-ended by a truck. She said her car lunged forward so violently that she ended up smacking her head on the steering wheel and it almost knocked her out. And then it happened a second time and she had to actually pump the brakes. And then everything got dead quiet, but she looked in the rearview mirror and looking through the back of the SUV, I'm assuming, maybe just
Yeah.
a truck, were these big eyes and this face. And she happened to pump the brakes. So now the brake lights light this face up, probably very reddish
Right.
hue to it. But she tells the guy she'd never seen anything like it. She was completely frozen in fear. She said got hit by the smell as if, a skunk had gotten in her truck and sprayed and then died and was there for a while. And she's looking at this face and she just tells the guy, it looks enough like an ape, but also enough like a human that it's neither or.
Right. Exactly.
But and then that makes me think about these hunters that always talk about catching it in the crosshairs of their rifle, and these are guys that they pull the trigger on just about anything. That say something about looking it down the barrel through the scope. It's just there's something. It's just human looking enough. It's not human, but it's just human looking enough. They can't pull the trigger. But what reminded me about you was she took a picture of one of the handprints because apparently this thing hit the back of her truck a couple of times.
Yeah.
And she is many years later she says I think it was just trying to get me out of there because she
Yep.
says it's twice the size of the biggest man you've ever met and could do anything it wanted to you. It could have picked up my car and probably thrown it, but it didn't. It just shoved it a couple of times, wanted me to leave. She said she left, but she took pictures of the handprint. And what I do like about that show now is now they're traveling with these portable scanners, like
Yeah.
professional forensics people, and they are taking scans of like feet prints and handprints in the dirt. And you're right, it just looks like a giant human hand, but
Yep.
it's not a human.
Yeah. And the
Um,
thumb's a little bit out. The thumb's not. I don't know if that hand is probably good enough, but the thumb is a little bit lower. Is just a little bit lower, and sticks out more. It's not. It's not the same exact proportions of our hands, but yeah, no, exactly.
well,
As
she
far
has
as
nothing to gain by it, and
as far
she
as
says
dermal
after,
ridges and heart lines and everything else, they're there because
yeah,
I've got prints, you know,
she
captured
will
in
never. The
dust.
lady did say she would never. She's never been out in the woods again after that time. You're talking about an indigenous Alaskan tribeswoman who
Right,
spent
right.
her whole life in the wilderness, and since that ordeal, she won't go back out in the woods. So, talk to me about why do you think these things are so skittish of us, but saying that, not really. I mean, if they have to come up to a truck and shove it like that, or toss a boulder the size of a Volkswagen at my friend who's a canoeing, he's a forest ranger, lifelong forest ranger, retired now, canoeing down a river in Idaho, and a Volkswagen sized boulder from the shoreline is tossed at him into the river. Um, they they're not that skittish of us, but skittish enough to where we have not been able to. Well, I do believe the government knows and is not disclosing. But what's going on there? Do you think with
So
their
so
behavior with
yes,
us?
so they if you're in their area and they don't want you there, let's say their families nearby, whatever. Imagine if you were in your own house, right? And all of a sudden somebody comes traipsing through there, whatever. Wouldn't you? You might go out on your lawn and say, "Hey, get out of here!" Right? I didn't invite you here, right? Except they're staying within their tenets of staying hidden. They'll you know throw rocks or sticks, logs. I've seen it all from from the woods, and especially if somebody's skittish, right? Off they go, and you were successful. And I would say 95% of anybody walking along, if they did that, they'd take off, right? You know, if I have a rock thrown at me, or it's been years since I've had that, but um, they'll, you know, I'll actually just turn and say hi, whatever, and you could just tell. It just seems like they're stunned by that, and then they'll just kind of go, what's different about this guy? What's he doing? but it takes a lot of guts. I mean, especially the one time I found this beautiful in Arizona. It's very rare to find a footprint, but I found this beautiful 16-inch long footprint, 5.5 inches, wide, all the toes visible, and I actually had casting material in my day pack, and I had been hiking. I was a couple miles in from the vehicle, and I, so I was taking photos of it, and then I was going to set up and actually cast it. And as I'm bent over taking photos of it with the measuring tapes on the ground and everything, all of a sudden I hear this really loud thud, 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 thud. And it just kind of, like if somebody threw something and it was rolling. I turn back where I saw the sound, and I see this large rock rolling across the ground near me. Well, I look around, and I don't see anything except the higher ground that was near this cave system. So it was obviously thrown from that great distance. Well, the rock, I was like, okay, they want me out of here, right? And I was in a very prone position, bent over taking a photo. Easily could have beamed me and killed me, with that rock. Chucking it was well over 100 feet is from where this 20-foot rock or 20-pound rock came flying from. But I packed up my stuff fairly quickly. I said, I'm sorry. I waved. I walked over. I picked up that rock. And I carried it for a while. Just to get a sense of it, and then let it down. But hiked back out to the car. Like I said, nowadays I don't. I really don't get too terrified of them. But they really they want to observe us. They really don't want to interact with us. Okay, and that's something new for them, I think, because I mean, who would want to really interact or come out and hang out with us and stuff? I mean,
Look at
they've been
us.
observing us for decades, for hundreds and probably thousands of years, and
The
they
indigenous
see
people that I
what
talked
humans
to,
do.
yeah, every indigenous person that has had an encounter or had the stories handed down through their tribe over the years of these clans living near their reservations or on the reservations, they think white people are so stupid for messing with this creature. They don't want to be messed with. The indigenous people don't want to mess with them
No,
and don't. So yeah, it's just I don't get it. But I throw out some of these names at the beginning of the show, scary names that some of these tribes have thrown out at them. And many years ago, when I had the radio show, and I had you on that show a couple of times, um, I started having people. As soon as I had guys like you on the show, people are like, "The Rev likes Sasquatch." I started getting all these reports, and the reports I got from here, even in Vegas. Well, I had my vet friend who's hiking up at Mount Charleston, and he diehard skeptic, does not believe in Sasquatch. If he's proven to be real, he said he'll give me a lifetime supply of tacos. So I'm still hoping. But he's up there hiking, young guy, athletic, very intelligent man. He's a doctor. He's up there hiking and he runs into two indigenous hunters up there walking around. And they all hit it off, had a little discussion. And then as they're parting, going their separate ways, so a matter of factly, so off the cuff, so nonchalantly, one of the guys says, "By the way, Doc, be careful where you go up here. Stick to the trails. There's there's some Bigfoot up here, as your people would call it, that are very aggressive and they're mean. So just be careful." So they walk away, and at first he kind of laughed to himself, but then he realized that these guys just so a matter of factly mentioned it off the cuff.
yeah.
He he all of a sudden got really terrified and he cut his hike short. And then he's telling me that story, and I'm getting all these stories about the tunnel people. We've got an incredible underground tunnel system here for the flash floods under our city. And I was getting reports from some people about homeless people going missing, some stray species of Sasquatch living in the tunnels. So I get huge backpack full of bottled water and a huge bag of sandwiches that I made. I go down and meet some of these people, and I got told some stories that were, made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. Areas of the tunnels where these people won't go. The stories of friends of theirs just disappearing. Of course, I'm thinking to myself, well, they drowned in a flash flood, but no, like in
Yeah.
no flash flooding was going on. And the noises they hear, blood curdling noises they've heard down in these tunnels, and some of the reports of some of the things they've seen, they're even here underneath our city in the tunnels. What do you think about the urban Sasquatch legend?
Oh gosh, I mean, that's almost been my specialty a little bit. At least finding. In fact, when I was in New Jersey, I was in Philadelphia for work, and coincidentally, I just happened to be there while the Diamondbacks were playing the Phillies. So I ended up going to Game One, and I got to tell you, after my treatment at Game One from other Phillies fans, it's no wonder Sasquatch wants to stay away from us, right? so,
Yeah.
so yeah, fans in the parking lot tried to they were rocking my rental car. So yeah, it was bad.
I'll
Anyway,
never forget the one time. Well, I did it a couple of times, but one of the legitimate sweat lodge sessions I went to, right before we got into the ceremony, the holy man says something to me in his native language, and my buddy who invited me to the session, I asked him, "What did he just say to me?" He goes, "Well, everybody has arrived so far, and they're still waiting for the Sasquatch to arrive. That he invited them too." And again, like my friend the vet, at first I almost started cracking up, but then I was freaked out
yeah,
that these people are like, claiming that these clans live on their reservation, which you would imagine the government doesn't go on these reservations, so it's a
yeah,
safe place. The Indians don't want to mess with them; they respect them. So that really freaked me out, and I knew my friend wasn't. The old man, the holy man, wasn't joking around, and my friend wasn't joking around.
right.
Um,
No, I'm in fact where the rock was thrown at me was right on the edge of a reservation, and I've been into the reservation, that same reservation from the north end, and I found 19-inch footprints, and I left a couple gifts for them, and they were taken, and I had them hanging 14 feet up in a
and
tree. I
you've
actually
been gifted too, which is you're on a
yes,
very short list of people I've known that have been actually gifted. I think that's probably in our world what we're going to experience in our lifetime. Uh, uh, that's big time.
yeah, and
You're a special person to
yeah,
them.
yeah, and like I said, it's a and most of the times it's just pretty rocks, or they were watching me. The one time, here's a fossil sitting on the hood of my car the next morning, right? Because they saw me earlier, the day before, you know, picking up fossils off the ground. So it's like, oh, well, he likes those. So here you go. I mean, that's the intelligence, right? That's where they are on that. So when I was in Philadelphia last week, last Thursday, actually, I had a free evening finally. I was working late almost every night, but I had done a little bit of my normal research, trying to figure out where could they be in an urban setting, near Philly here, and I couldn't find anything. I couldn't find anything that wouldn't have been maybe a 2 hour drive, and I didn't want to drive 4 hours round trip, and I wasn't sure about that area. But the um, one area I looked at, I was like, oh, that area looks ideal, and it was just right across the Delaware River. I was kind of like George Washington, right? I crossed the Delaware, and I so I went and visited this area. Pulled up there, made a couple calls, and just sat back and waited. And it was within 5 minutes, and from three different knocks came back out of the woods from varying distances. You could just tell from the volume. It was one was maybe a mile away, mile and a half. It was pretty far. One was One was probably about a mile, and the other one was maybe half a mile, maybe. So I sat there and I just waited and I waited and waited. And then I did another call. And then I just sat there and waited. And, from the distant ones, the two distant ones called, knocked back. Um, and, but the one that was closer did not knock back. But then I started hearing, probably about 8-10 footsteps, bipedal footsteps coming up in the woods towards my location, and then it just stopped. So he's probably 50-60 feet away from me, but looking at me, it just stopped and was just like, oh, who's this? So they're examining me. So I stood there just kind of, I talked to him for a little bit, didn't get any responses from him, and then I just said thanks and got in the car and headed back to the hotel. But no, definitely in that area, they used that. They were using that area in order to access the Delaware River, but it was fed by a creek that had a natural path that they could take under the cover of foliage all the way over to the Pine Barrens. It was
Wow.
ideal. So they could hide out in the Pine Barrens. They could traverse back over to the Delaware River and then use the Pine Barrens on the other side to go to the coast if they, for foraging. So it was the perfect location, So it was, but like I said, I looked at 20-30 locations, that I was looking at, and some of them were distant, and then the other ones, that's not really ideal or whatever. And then when I saw this, I said, oh, they're absolutely in this area. And it's really that formula, right, of just getting in their mindset of how they live and how they think, and you'll find them. You will.
Well, in the short time, oh my gosh, when I get
Oh
people
gosh.
like you on, I'm going to have to start making my show, see if I can, Zach will allow me to do an hour and a half or 2 hours. But in the short time I have left, I'll hit you with what your opinion is on the three most popular theories now.
Okay.
I don't have
Cloaking,
that many Twinkies.
cloaking,
Yes.
infrasound, and migration. And I've told you the story of my friend who was hiking with her dogs up in the mountains, and then she comes home. She not, could care less about Bigfoot. And then some weeks later, a friend of hers just happens to, on all these hikes you go to up in the mountains, and she lives way up there in the mountains. Have you ever seen a Bigfoot? And she said she got hit like a bolt of lightning with this remembrance of having seen one very similar to your encounter, squatted down digging by a creek. And it looked up at her and her dogs, and she heard psychically the voice she assumes was the Bigfoot telling her, "You don't see me, go home." But she had forgotten all of that. It wasn't
Yeah.
until weeks later her friend had said, "Have you ever seen a Bigfoot on your hiking excursions?" That memory came back. It was suppressed. So, real quick, your opinions on migrating, infrasound, and cloaking.
Okay. Migrating. I know that Expedition Bigfoot's talking about, well, we went from Pacific Northwest all the way up to Alaska, and they had some wolf DNA that only lived in Alaska. Um, and that he's trying to say that the footprint that they found in Northern California matched one in Alaska. They're they don't, in my opinion, they don't traverse that far. I think they do. They'll move a couple hundred miles, I think, in scope, in an in diameter in an area, but they don't go thousands of miles. It's just, no, they don't do that. So they don't migrate like hummingbirds. And then I'm sorry, what was the other?
Cloaking.
Cloaking. So I have had some experiences where I was having rocks thrown at me, but I had good visibility in a lot of different directions, and including just last year, I was up on the rim in Arizona, and we had been tracking one that actually, I don't know, I want to say, for lack of a better word, had pooped its pants. Okay, it very very noticeable stink, right? And we actually moved to the center of this meadow that was massive, 300 feet one direction, probably 150 feet wide, and we're parked right in the middle of it, and the smell, got closer, and it was daytime. It was like could not see anything. So um, I have no explanation for that. Like I said, I've obviously if they're cloaked, if they can cloak, you wouldn't see them, right? but
Absolutely.
but you could smell them, right? At least that's my theory. So
What
um,
about the what
I'm a
about
believer.
infrasound?
Infrasound. Now, I've been hit with infrasound a couple times. I've also isolated infrasound on tapes that were recorded in northern Texas, right on the not far from the Red River, and that and in fact, as I isolated that infrasound, I kept playing it over, and I couldn't understand why why I just felt queasy and ill as I worked on refining this audio for MK Davis, and then I realized, wait a minute, in this below 20 hertz, there's something there, and as I isolated that and then boosted it above 20 hertz, which is below our hearing level, it really sounded honestly like a didgeridoo. So it was, um, you I
Oh
got
yeah.
so I doubled it. So and it was varying between 16 and 16 and 18 hertz was the sound, and it was just this wow, 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 wow. and and if you've ever seen the effect of infrasound on water, you can change the direction of water, you can manipulate the shape of running water, right? And humans are filled with water.
Yeah.
So, if somebody, and I know that whales, tigers, elephants can produce infrasound, but if you can tell me what produces infrasound in North Texas, I'd love to hear that. That theory. But I also got hit with infrasound out on Long Island as well when I was doing my research there, and that one brought me to my knees. I almost
Wow.
I mean, I was on my knees, and I thought I was going to die, and I managed to squeak out, "I'm a friend." That's all I said, and it stopped.
Wow.
And boy, I tell you what, I after that I got up and I just kind of waved, got into my car, and I headed off to have some dinner, but I couldn't eat dinner for almost an hour because I was just so queasy, and oh, it was
That's crazy. That's
it was
incredible, brother.
yep.
Well, listen, and before I forget, I want you to know I love you. I respect you. I think you're one of the coolest people I know on the planet. I got to get you back. Whatever. I think I'm booked to the end of the year. I got to get you back right after the first of the year, and we'll
Just
talk
let
some
me
more
know.
Bigfoot. And
Let me
like
know.
I
We'll
said,
do
I
that.
tell people I always don't talk to you about all your lifelong paranormal experiences. So I'll make a definite note that we'll get into a little biggie, but we'll also talk about some ghosts and entities and things. You've had some pretty
Oh,
incredible encounters. So have a happy Halloween. Have a wonderful remainder to your Friday and your weekend. God bless you. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll be in touch.
all right. Well, you take care, Sean, and like I said, yeah, happy Halloween.
God bless you, brother.
All
We'll
right.
see you later.
Yep.
KARL SUP. Pretty incredible. They're gonna prove his existence here pretty soon, and then it's gonna be tacos on me all around. Okay, I'm taking next week off. I'll be on the road. I'll be back November 10th, Friday, November 10th, with a brand new show. Host and creator of Dark Fringe Radio, um, Will Martinez, will be here on Friday, November 10th. But I will be on the road from next week till then. So Thank you to Zach and Adrian Clayton, my co-producers. I couldn't do the show without them. usocc.org and bishopjameslong.com. Go to both those websites if you're interested in the church that I belong to. Just be pleasantly surprised. If you are interested in night prayer, which is every weeknight, Monday through Friday at 7 p.m. Pacific, the link to that is there. If you're interested in Bible study, which is every Wednesday and Sunday afternoon at 5 p.m. Pacific, the links to that are there at either or both of those websites. You're all invited to come to English, Indiana for the big USOCC ordinations ceremony. I'll post information about that, and that's next week if you're in the area. If you're in the area and see me riding shotgun in the Pope Mobile, you're not seeing things. Okay. Thank you to Things Network. Thank you to Temple of Phoenix Rising Entertainment. Thank you to Skeleton Key Network. Thank you to Spirit, Scientific Paranormal Inspection Research Investigation Team. And thank you to PACT, little p, capital ACT, Podcasting for All Coming Together channel for all these networks simulcasting my show. God bless you for that. No, they have not announced a season 2 for Eli Roth Presents The Legion of Exorcists. It is officially in pending. So it hasn't been canceled, but it hasn't been greenlighted for a season 2. As soon as I know something official, I'll let you know. You can find me now on Facebook at Lawrence Morace, Lawrence, Morace, Morace, Sean Patrick Whittington in parentheses, because my original Facebook profile still is not on this planet any longer. What else do I want to tell you guys? Go to Zach's website, communitypayitforward.us. Communitypayitforward.us. Just go there and be pleasantly surprised. You can still watch Eli Roth Presents The Legion of Exorcists streaming on Max and Discovery Plus, and you can buy the complete season 1 on Amazon Prime Video. I love you all. God bless you all for being here. It's bad joke time. I'm going to pull a bad joke that one of you sent in out of my Haunted Carnival Barker hat, and it's my way to put a smile on everybody's face before I say good night. Hey, when you pay for good special effects, you get them. Okay, here's one. This better be good.
Yeah, with all my hard work, it better be a good joke.
I know. This better be a good one. Why does Waldo only wear stripes? Because he doesn't want to be spotted. I'm going to pull another one real quick. Oh my gosh. Okay, because it's Halloween, I have no candy. You get 2 jokes today. Did you hear the one about the 3 watering holes in the ground? Well, well, well. Good night, Danny. Good night, Jack. Good night, Dog. Good night, Harold. Rest in peace. Good night, Ernie. Good night, Bill. Good night, Dan. God bless you all. I love you all. Happy Halloween. Peace.